In this video, I'm going to talk about advice I would give my younger self. If you've been enjoying this video series, check out some of the other ones. Been making these longer episodes, but more so than liking and subscribing, if you could check out fuzzimp.com. Link's going to be in the description, in the bio. It's fuzzimp.com. To me, I love doing what I do on YouTube, making videos, and but more so, I like building pedals and continue to exist that way. But that'll kind of feed into what we're talking about today. And I know this exercise is kind of flawed because we can't go back and change the past, right? We can only change what we do moving forward and hopefully learn from our mistakes, from things that went right, things that went wrong. And I get in a reflective mode sometimes, but at the same time, I try to be looking into the future and even being present in the moment, even more so, which I think is the most important thing. Not always the greatest at it, but I was thinking about topics for these videos, and I try not to make a video unless I feel like I have something to say, especially because this new format is just kind of turn on the camera, go and upload it raw. I could get slick with jump cuts and edits and overlays, and maybe that'll be the future, but not today. So before we get started on that topic, I always like to include some music towards the beginning. So we're going to plug in and play. I've got these two knob senders. I'm playing the black edition. I just built a couple of these. I had 4 boards and there's only 1 spot left as of now. By the time you're watching this, it'll probably be sold out. But Sender 5 is great and does way more than all these things. Really killer distortion pedal. And I'm gonna plug in and play on the Minx. Oh man, I love playing music. If you're ever wondering why I'm always wearing my headset everywhere I go, it attenuates the volume, and I get used to hearing the outside world with kind of the hearing protection, and at the volumes that I play in my demos and videos, it's pretty loud. But let's get into the actual topic. I like to include the music section because it just reminds me of what is really important. And what got me thinking about this topic again is I have a personal Instagram account that is pretty dormant these days because I have the company one and I use that for posting every day. And I put a lot of work into the Instagram, and occasionally things go viral and I post lots of cool demos. So definitely check out the Fuzzimp Instagram, at Fuzzimp on Instagram. It's been where I've done a lot of my growth. But looking back, more so I'd say in my 20s, because that was kind of the pivotal time in my life where I go from kind of this younger person without a lot of autonomy, finally getting jobs. And I've talked about this in previous videos a bit, but I think today maybe we'll cover some more serious topics, some more like in-depth and get real about some things. And so that was kind of where my head was at going into this one. But I was going back on my Instagram, because I think I've had that Instagram for about 10 years, my personal one. I was going back to as far back as it went to back when Instagram only let you upload 15-second videos. So it was a challenge to fit a riff clip into that amount of time. As a lot of people were sharing stories, it was a very big kind of that transition away from the Facebook as a social media to Instagram, because it was so much less busy. There's a lot less kind of comment wars and stuff like that. So when Instagram became like kind of big, and I actually didn't have a smartphone until about 2012 or 13. I was using a flip phone that was really cheap. It's actually some of the better decisions that I was making when I was younger was I mostly stayed off social media for quite a while, and I also was paying nothing for a phone bill because I didn't have a smartphone, and I just lived that way. I had a car I paid cash for. I had really low overhead staying with friends, because it wasn't until about 2012 or 13 I had a stable job. I was a temp at the time. Coming out of college, I had a really hard time finding good employment. And while, your job isn't your whole identity, it does play a lot into what you're able to do going into, deeper into your adulthood. And I got a job that was real stable and paid really well. I started having credit. I had never really had credit before. And that gets into one of the first things that advice I would give my younger self, also other younger people. If you don't have a lot of self-control when it comes to finances, I think this is tons of people have gone through this. All my friends that were older than me said, be careful with credit cards. It's a trap. There's some people that are really responsible that can totally handle credit, but Dave Ramsey has a multi-billion-dollar empire because it's been proven out most people can't handle debt, and a lot of people do end up with student loan debts, medical debts, things that are, they have a little more purpose than it's just racking up credit cards with whatever. But I think that was the first thing. If I was going to give advice to my younger self, would be save more money and don't buy a bunch of stuff on credit cards. And when it came to gear, I finally got gear cards a little deeper. I'd say about 2015 or so. I got my Guitar Center gift card. I remember because I bought a 2015 Les Paul. That was the year of the Robo Tuners, and the only one they had in stock on, I think it was like 3-year financing that you could get. And obviously I make equipment for a living. I have a lot of people who use credit cards to buy my stuff, buy it on payment plans. At one point, there was the way the website was set up, it kicked back to me a metric about how many people were using the PayPal Pay in 4 or PayPal Credit. And it was something like some significant percent, like 15% or more of people were using some kind of payment plan. And some payment plans really aren't bad. I used to buy from Zounds. Some people say Z-Zounds, but if you're saying it like when you call them, they say, hey, this is Zounds. And it was that revelation, oh, they're kind of known as one of those places that has like a no credit check payment plan system. Those things can be dangerous, especially, at the time, I had a stable job and my overhead was low. But as time went on, as I started to pick up a lot of these payment plans, it started making my life more complicated because I went from, okay, well, I just, this is how much I'm spending, but that lifestyle creep happened over time. So I went from having cars I paid cash for, really low overhead, a phone bill was like $30 to all of a sudden, I've got to have all the latest smartphones. I got really into that. I was buying computer equipment on credit cards, and you have a payment plan for this that's due every month, a payment plan that's due for this every month. And these are things most adults go through. I think you guys get it. I'm not going to belabor the point too much. But on top of buying all my equipment on credit, I also didn't have a big savings to back it up. Like as soon as the money was coming in, whatever it was getting spent. And sometimes I would know, okay, I'm working overtime this week, so I'm going to go ahead and buy this thing because I know I'm just going to have that couple extra bucks to make that extra payment, and it's not going to be a big deal. I'll figure it out down the road. I'll be making more money, blah, blah, blah. But kicking down the can down the road financially definitely put me in some tough spots as I got deeper into adulthood, deeper into my 20s. And I know that a lot of people go through this. Maybe some people, they start out being really responsible, only using their credit cards for gas and paying them off immediately and things like that. But I think as musicians, leveraging that credit, especially if you kind of grew up and were really into gear but couldn't necessarily always afford it, that temptation is definitely there. So that would be one of the biggest ones. It's just kind of the whole thing around finances in my 20s. I was real dumb. I got really in debt. Fast forward a few years, eventually what I ended up having to do was it's hard to explain what this is. It's a kind of a common strategy. Like I mentioned Dave Ramsey earlier. So if you get to the point where you really can't afford your payments, like your car payments too much, all your other payments are too much, what you end up having to do is you just stop making payments and like let your score get nuked, and then you're kind of slowly rebuilding it. And I had to do that in about 2018 or so. So my credit score is terrible still, but I am climbing out of that hole, which is good. But that was one of those things that looking back, there were some times when I was doing things like going out with friends to bars and spending that all on credit cards. Like, oh, well, I'll just pay it off when I get paid. But then it's like, if it's every weekend, and especially if you're, doing some drinking and like just having a good time, you're not thinking about how much is getting spent. But one of the things that happened, so that happened for a couple of years. One of the things that flipped is I was like, you know what? I'm not really going anywhere in life. I'm not playing my music like I should be. All I'm doing is working and paying off credit cards. This isn't great. So what ended up happening is I switched shifts. So I went from working a day shift, 4 10s, to a weekend shift, 3 12s. And it was a really important thing that I did at that point in time. This is all back in like the 2010s. So what I ended up doing is I worked weekends, so I couldn't go out, and I was making more. It came with a pay bump. It had, I could get overtime a lot easier. So before, if I was working the 410s, I really didn't want to work the weekends to get that extra money. But because my work week technically was shorter, I was able to pick up a lot more overtime opportunities. And where the company was at that time, I was picking up a lot. So in addition to switching to weekends, I'm spending less, I'm working and making the same amount of money. It didn't take much, around 6 months of that, I switched from working weekends to I got a second job, and I started learning CAD design and worked in the office for a company. And that really was a big shift. But even then, so there was so I'm going from the weekends only to, okay, I'm working basically 7 days a week. I would pick up OT on swing shift, and then I'd work during the day doing office work for this other company. So I was working 7 days a week, and that burned me out pretty bad. It's another thing that can happen if you're not careful when you're younger, is you can burn yourself out working too much. It's good to have a good work ethic, but it's really important to take care of yourself. I also think back to those times, just health-wise, this is something that it's become really important to me now. I've started to pay a lot more attention to my diet and exercise levels, especially in the summer when I'm a little more sedentary. I'm not going out as much because it's too hot. So what I started doing these last couple weeks actually is walking. I walk an average, my rolling average the last couple weeks is about 7,500 steps. Sometimes I'll have a rest day and I'll do like 11,000 one day. But walking has really taken a lot of stress and anxiety out of my life. It's been a really positive change. And I wish I had been doing that when I was younger, is building in kind of a walking plan, even a basic exercise plan. The job that I was working when I was working assembly was pretty physical. So I was walking probably 5, maybe 6 miles a day around the shop because it's a big shop. But outside of that, I'm eating a lot of fast food, not taking care of myself, and I didn't put on a ton of weight back then because I was pretty active at work. These 10, 12-hour days, depending on which era we're talking about, I kind of got away with it for a while, but over time, I started realizing, I feel like crap all the time. I need to change something. But it took me a while to get on that plan. But then when I got the office job, a different office job at the same company, there was a donut shelf and things like that, I started really packing on. I think it was the heaviest I ever weighed at one point. I probably got close to 280. I'm just shy of 6 foot. So 280 is quite a bit for me. Right now, and hopefully I might do a whole video about my health journey if it's I feel like it's going somewhere worth talking about that's impressive. But if nothing else, my stress and anxiety levels have gone down a lot by incorporating like a couple miles of walking a day. And it does a lot. But I wasn't doing that back then. I definitely was dealing a lot with, depression and anxiety and trying to find purpose. I also wasn't creating as much music. But looking back at that old Instagram, I'm looking back over these posts, and I was so glad that I at least was making videos at times. So I'm definitely doing all this work, hanging out with friends, but on the off hours, I would have my whole rig fired up and I would play along to tracks and put it on Instagram, or I'd get a new guitar, put it on Instagram. So I have this journal basically of those 10 years, even though there's big gaps and there's, not all the content is super worth sharing now. For me, it takes me back those times. It was like, oh, I was doing this time. Oh, I forgot about that guitar. That was a cool guitar. It's like, oh, I remember kind of how those pickups sounded in this instrument. So I have this nice gear archive. And I think, if anything, I wish I had spent more money on the equipment. But yeah, so we talked a little about debt, health, mental health a little bit. But yeah, and more advice I would give is like finding work-life balance. Definitely having friends is good. I had a lot of friends, and I still have a lot of friends online and stuff, but I think being socially active really helped me. I grew up and was kind of a homebody, kind of sheltered person, and I had good close friends, but kind of a smaller circle. Kind of switched some things and met some new people, started hanging out in different places, and that's not all bad, but especially if your whole life at certain points revolves around bars and drinking, that definitely can be a big time suck. There was many a time I'm up late some night, I'm having an okay time, but I'm just thinking, man, I really should be doing music. Because I felt guilty. It's like I have all this equipment at home. I have a nice home studio that I'm not using. I'm out blowing my money, and then I'm gonna have tomorrow. I'm gonna have to recover. But it was like I'm glad for some of the journaling and some of the things I did do and some of the cool stuff I got to buy because of working so much. But at the same time, I wish I had been doing more actual songwriting or creating more content. I especially wish I could. I was into YouTube, so I had a video go kind of viral early on. I might have talked about this a little bit in an earlier video, maybe not. But I had a drum set review do really super well. We kind of hit a really sweet spot on the timing. It was the Questlove Breakbeats drum set, the Blue Sparkle one. At the time, the roots were really big. I don't know if I still have that video listed or not. It might be unlisted now. I could probably unlist it if you guys wanted to see it, but it had a couple 100,000 views and made a couple $100 back when I was monetized. But I never was willing to invest in a DSLR. I did used to edit all my videos on Premiere. So if you're not familiar with what I do now, I have two different iPhones. When I was doing dual cam videos, I would have both recording and then always use studio audio. Occasionally now I'll upload videos with room audio off the cell phone if I feel like it's capturing a vibe well. I actually really like the sound of this room that I'm in now, which is why I'm not using as much studio magic on these YouTube videos or on some of my content lately. But yeah, I never bought the proper cameras and did all the slick things that a lot of my friends did because I just didn't feel like putting in enough of the time. And it's something I still think about doing all the time is like, okay, I need a better PC, I need some real cameras, and that may be in the future for this channel, who knows. But really, my priority overall, like anyone who runs a small pedal business, should be in making pedals, designing pedals, talking about pedals, promoting the pedals. So that always takes precedent, priority, and budget over whatever else I may want to do. So that's kind of some of the things. I played in bands a lot when I was younger, but it was only up to a certain level. So I was really involved with kind of a youth group scene growing up. I got a lot of stage time. That's how I learned how to play with other people, which I think is really important. It can really grow your playing quickly on any instrument. I got into drumming in kind of my late teens, early 20s, and that was kind of my focus for a while because I was burned out on guitar. But playing more is great. I wish I would have taken more risks, maybe tried to get in with bands that were a little more active kind of outside of the insulated scene that I was in. I tried out for a couple bands. I did a couple little things. I played a festival once that was cool with a friend's project. But just where I was at when I was younger, I kind of just wanted to do my own thing, which is why running a solo pedal company has been a good fit for the most part. I think that that's true. But I think I would have learned a lot more had I gotten into a more serious project or worked with more serious musicians, more hands-on. The handful of times I was interacting with people that were more active and more serious, I didn't take it seriously enough because it wasn't my project. I just was kind of almost like a hired gun on lead guitar kind of a thing. And I tried to put too much of what I wanted on their sound instead of kind of being a part of something. So looking back, I think that would have been a really good opportunity to mature as a player and as a musician. And yeah, I think about some of those things all the time and what that looks like moving forward. I really don't know that I would want to be in a touring band again. I definitely feel like my fit would be more something like a sound guy or, you know, a guitar tech or drum tech, something like that, kind of in a less about the stage time, more about being a support staff, like a supporting person. I feel like that I get more excitement out of that. I'm kind of a control freak with OCD. And so those things appeal to me a little more. I love playing on stage. I love playing live, but it's been a while since I've done it. I think my last show I played it was a while ago. It was pre-pandemic for sure. But yeah, I love what I do now. Obviously, this thought exercise of what would I tell my younger self in hopes that it would help someone else as younger. I think there's probably been a few of these topics that resonate either with my primary audience, which is people around my age, usually slightly older, maybe slightly younger. But if anybody younger is watching this, make the best financial decisions you can, make as much music as you can. Don't beat yourself up so bad. I think I really was in my head a lot, and it's those times are tough when you're young, just trying to figure out what the world is and how the world works, kind of getting those early jobs. I took work somewhat serious. I probably could have taken it more serious when I had real opportunities. I think that's the one thing is until I had my own thing, I don't think I took a lot of working serious because it was like, oh, this is just a means to an end. This is just what I'm doing to pay my bills and buy more gear. Because that was all I really cared about. And it's still, to a point, all I really care about. I mean, I have some more balance in my life a little bit. And so I'm trying to build a future, but it's these things like, I think that it would have benefited me more, slow down a little bit on the spending and think about longer term purchases. You know, there's saving up instead of buying whatever I could get on sale from a music shop, instead maybe, you know, investing in the stuff that I would really hold on to, and also just having robust savings to take care of everything else, because I treated my entire gear collection as a savings account. It's like, well, I'm really bad at saving, but I'm good at buying equipment on good deals so I can flip it, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, when times got hard and when I had some changes, when I didn't have a full-time paycheck or a steady income, all that stuff just disappears. And even now, you know, because I sell gear for a living, like I have very little emotional attachment to the equipment that I use other than, you know, gifts from friends and things like that. But it's just one of those things. And I'm glad that I can see now things that I learned. You know, I can see at times playing videos of me playing back then where it's a little more raw. You know, I'm not paying attention to playing in time or in tune because I want to play something wild that I hadn't practiced enough or whatever. But then at the same time, there's times in the past where I can tell, oh, I had been practicing a lot. I've been playing every day. I've been playing the backing tracks. I've been writing better material. You know, now I kind of just do what I do. And I did write a song earlier. I put it up. It's called Whisper. If you want to check that out, it's on the YouTube channel. But anyway, I figure like this kind of covers the basis. I'm thinking about some other cool video ideas. Drop a comment if this resonated with you, if you made it to the end. Super appreciate you. And check out fuzzimp.com, and we'll see you on the next one.